Part 12. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 111. One corpse is not scary, but the sense of oppression brought by a pile of corpses is fatal. Looking at the tide of corpses rushing towards me, I didn't feel the slightest panic. I activated the ghost seal, and a cold aura spread from my body. I shouted sharply at the black mass of corpses, "Be brave." The power of ghosts appeared and all the corpses stopped moving. They stood there, looking at me with fear in their eyes. It was exactly as I guessed. These corpses, no, they should be said to be lonely ghosts. These lonely ghosts have been lingering here because of the resentment in their hearts and refuse to leave. And all the rumors in Wudeng Alley were caused by them. I can't help but wonder, there are so many lonely ghosts in Lightless Alley, why are there no ghost missions coming to tame them? Is there any taboo here? I looked at these lonely ghosts in front of me, and an idea suddenly came to my mind. That is, if I send these lonely ghosts into the underworld, wouldn't I gain great merit? Thinking of this, I asked these lonely ghosts, why are you entrenched here and unwilling to leave? As soon as these words came out, these lonely ghosts, you looked at me, I looked at you, no one knew how to answer. At this moment, an old man walked out. This old man's dress does not look like a modern person, but should be an ancient commoner. "Sir, it's not that we don't want to leave, it's just that we can't leave." Hearing this, I frowned and asked, "Why?" "Because this alley prohibits us from leaving, and you, sir, are the only ghosts who have entered here in hundreds of years." "Can't ghosts come in?" "Then why can I come in?" Then I thought about it, I'm not a ghost either. He can only be regarded as an agent and a part-time worker. I nodded and said, "Okay, I understand, I will send you away." Hearing these words, all the lonely ghosts showed joy on their faces. I opened the door to the underworld, and all the ghosts' eyes lit up, and they lined up and walked in one by one. And every lonely ghost who enters the gate of the underworld will say thank you gratefully to me. In less than a minute, all the lonely ghosts in the alley entered. I let out a long sigh and finally solved it. I looked back at my second uncle and found that he had been standing quietly. I walked towards him, but my second uncle subconsciously took a step back. This small movement sparked my idea. I took another step forward, but my second uncle still backed away. My eyes moved, and I put away the ghost mark. This time I walked towards my second uncle, who did not dodge. "Ha ha ha. Xiao Su. I haven't seen you for a few days and you have become so powerful." My second uncle walked up and patted me on the shoulder. In response to his compliment, I sheepishly scratched my head and said, "People always have to grow." The second uncle laughed and said to me, "Let's go and save that little girl quickly." I nodded and followed my second uncle. The smile on my face disappeared instantly. There is definitely something wrong with the second uncle in front of me. In order to verify my suspicion, I secretly took out my mobile phone and sent a message to my third uncle. At first, the mobile phone could not be used because of the resentment of the lonely ghost. But after sending away the lonely ghosts, the place returned to normal. The text message was sent, "I just hope that Uncle San was not asleep at this time." Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 112. I followed my second uncle to the door of an ancient house. The second uncle carefully pushed open the door of the ancient house and walked in. The buildings in Wudeng Alley are extremely retro, and it is not unusual for an ancient house to appear here. The second uncle's movements were very light and his expression was extremely cautious, but his reaction seemed a bit artificial in my eyes. In my impression, my second uncle is an extremely stable person. No matter what happens, he will be very calm. But now, it feels a little strange to me. Also, I have sent away all the ghosts in the alley, so how could there still be ghosts? The wooden door of the ancient house was in dilapidated condition. Apart from the slightest cracks, all that was left were small wormholes. My second uncle and I walked into the ancient house. Walking through the gate of the ancient house, there is a huge stone screen inside. The screen is carved with a landscape painting. The landscape paintings are very delicately carved, but one bad thing is that the screen seems to have been artificially damaged, and it is dilapidated in many places. Passing around the screen, what comes into view is a yard overgrown with weeds. The scorched yellow weeds are mixed with tender green grass, and the pale moonlight pours down, making it look like it is coated with a layer of silver. There is a towering locust tree in the center of the yard. I was a little surprised when I saw this locust tree. There is something special in this small yard. Why can't such a big locust tree be seen outside? At this moment, I suddenly heard a whining sound. I was slightly startled. It seemed like the sound made by a person whose mouth was blocked. And the direction from which the sound came was from the locust tree. My second uncle and I looked at each other, took steps, and cautiously approached the locust tree. When we walked around the back of the locust tree, I was stunned for a moment. It turned out to be Sia-11. Sia-11 was tied to a locust tree with tape on her mouth. She had tears in her eyes and a look of grievance on her face. After seeing me, this emotion became even stronger. I quickly untied her and then tore off the tape on her mouth. Sia-11 fell into my arms and burst into tears. Lusu. I patted her back gently and comforted her. Don't cry, it's okay, it's okay. What Sia-11 has experienced these days has indeed cast a huge shadow on her. First he was imprisoned by his dead sister, and then he was tied here. She had never experienced anything like this before. Sia-11 sobbed in my arms for a while, and then stopped crying. I reached out my hand and wiped the tears from her eyes. She still hugged me tightly and refused to let go. Lusu, I'm really scared, so scared. She buried her head in my chest and choked with sobs. I can only comfort with words. After Sia-11's mood stabilized, her second uncle asked from the side, "Little girl, who kidnapped you?" When Sia-11 heard this question, her delicate body trembled, she glanced at me, and then lowered her eyes. I don't know. Seeing Sia-11's appearance, I already knew the answer in my heart. The second uncle said anxiously, "Little girl, don't be afraid. Who kidnapped you?" Sia-11 still refused to say. I sighed and asked, "Did my master tie you up?" Sia-11 raised her head and looked at me blankly, wanting to deny it, but after seeing the look in my eyes, she nodded gently. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 113. Why Sia-11 refused to say just now was actually very simple. That's because she cares about my feelings. She was afraid that I would be sad if she said this. Because she knows that I respect Su Tianqian very much. And now, my respected master has actually done such a thing. Sia-11 was afraid that I wouldn't be able to accept it? What the hell is going on? Tell me. Sia-11 hesitated for a moment and said, after I left my house that night, I came to Jiyuntang. The cause and course of the incident were exactly the same as what the second uncle described. But Sia-11 told me what happened after she was kidnapped. I was unconscious at the time, and when I woke up again I was tied here. Then Master Tianqian appeared, and I asked her for help, but she ignored me, just looked at me and left, and then she was there too, didn't show up. Sia-11 has been tied here for a day and a night. This girl is really suffering. After listening to Sia-11's narration, the second uncle said angrily, Xiao Su, you know this time. Your master is such a despicable and shameless villain. You will only be in danger if you stay with her. I helped Sia-11 stand up, glanced at my second uncle and nodded. I see. At this moment, the phone suddenly rang. My heart trembled. Is this my third uncle replying to my text message? But I was not in a hurry to check, and said to my second uncle, let's go. The second uncle nodded and said to me, Xiao Su. I can no longer trust Su Tianxian. The second uncle will help you. Su Tianxian can't be trusted anymore? I don't think so. I nodded towards my second uncle and said, thank you, my second uncle. The second uncle waved his hand and said, you are my nephew, and it is only natural that I help you. After that, the second uncle turned around and walked towards the gate of the ancient house. I supported Xia11 with one hand and secretly took out my phone with the other hand. Sure enough, it was a message sent to me by my third uncle. I opened the message sent to me by my third uncle, and when I saw the first sentence, I froze in place. Huge grief arose in my heart for no reason, and I felt a little dizzy. How come? How so? Before I could recover, my second uncle's voice suddenly rang in my ears. Xiao Su, what are you looking at again? I turned my head suddenly and saw my second uncle pressing his face against mine, looking at me coldly with his eyes. I felt a chill in my heart and quickly put away my phone and said, it's okay. I'll check what time it is. Second uncle, let's go. The second uncle looked at me deeply and said nothing. This time, my second uncle did not walk in front, but followed me. After reading Uncle San's text message, I felt like I was swaying when I walked. I suppressed the emotions in my heart and walked forward step by step. Xia11 was keenly aware that something was wrong with my mood, so she took my hand and rubbed it gently. Her movements were gentle, which eased my mood a little. Just when the three of us were about to walk out of the ancient house, a figure suddenly appeared and blocked our way. It was dark and I couldn't see anyone coming. But by the silhouette of the figure, I could tell who he was. The person who came was none other than my master, Su Tianxian. Su Tianxian's cold voice sounded in my ears. Who asked you to come here? Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 114. The dark clouds moved slowly in the night sky, and the moonlight once again poured into the lightless alley. Su Tianxian's figure slowly appeared in the darkness. She stood quietly, her eyes full of anger. I was slightly stunned. In my impression, Su Tianxian's character was always as plain as water, as if nothing could affect her emotions. But now, Su Tianxian is angry. The second uncle looked at Su Tianxian with a serious look on his face. I made him. Shut up. Do you have the right to speak here? Su Tianxian's cold aura poured out, and the powerful aura made me breathless. Lu Su. Let me ask you again. Why are you here? Su Tianxian's voice was so cold that it chilled people's hearts. Xia11's delicate body trembled and she hugged my arm tightly. I took a step forward, took a deep breath and said, I came here myself. Su Tianxian's expression became even colder, and she said coldly, do you know how dangerous this place is? And you even sent away the lonely ghosts here. Lightless alleys are indeed dangerous. But Su Tianxian's last sentence made me very confused. Is it possible that these lonely ghosts can't leave here? She wanted to continue scolding me, but I interrupted her. If I didn't come here, would I know what you did? Su Tianxian's expression froze after hearing what I said. She asked, what did I do? I raised a sneer at the corner of my mouth and said, you tied up Xia11. As soon as these words came out, Su Tianxian narrowed her beautiful eyes and started to look me up and down. I blinked at her quickly. Su Tianxian was slightly startled when he saw this, and then looked at my second uncle. My intention was instantly understood. She stopped talking and just looked at me quietly. What? What else do you have to say? Su Tianxian seemed to be thinking about the meaning of my move, so he didn't respond to me. Then if you don't speak, it's your acquiescence. After a long time, the corners of Su Tianxuan's mouth raised slightly, and his tone was full of teasing. So what if I did it? So what if I didn't do it? She focused her gaze on my second uncle, and the coldness in her eyes was replaced by murderous intent. Su Tianxian suddenly struck out, thunder and lightning flashing in the palm of his right hand. My heart trembled. This Su Tianxian is too powerful. I didn't even see her pinching her hands. I quickly pretended to stand in front of Su Tianxian and protected my second uncle behind me. Su Tianxuan's movement stagnated, and the thunderbolt in his right hand dissipated instantly. I said to Su Tianxian, "If you want to kill my second uncle, kill me first." Su Tianxian didn't speak, so I continued, "Don't you want my luck and destiny? If I die, you will get nothing. If you want to snatch my luck, you must do it while I am alive, otherwise my destiny and luck will dissipate." Su Tianxian glanced at me lightly, turned and left without saying a word. I watched Su Tianxian leave my back and let out a long sigh of relief. When the second uncle saw Su Tianxian leaving, the nervous look on his face disappeared completely. He had just experienced the fear of death. If I hadn't stood in front of him, he would have been beaten to pieces by Su Tianxuan's 9-layer thunder strike. The second uncle patted me on the shoulder and said, "Xiao Su, thank you very much just now. If it weren't for you, I would probably die." I smiled at my second uncle and said, "Isn't it natural for a nephew to save his uncle?" Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 115. The second uncle laughed, his brows filled with joy. He said to me, "Xiao Su, we cannot delay the return of Qing Yangxin to the palace. We must do it as soon as possible." I nodded in agreement, and my second uncle continued, "Your grandfather has already made it very clear how to make Qin Jiangxing return to the palace. Indeed, the letter my grandfather gave me made it very clear. If you want Qing Yangxin to return to the palace, you must find a century-old tomb and bury the 3 coffins together. The burial of 3 coffins is actually very easy to explain. Just prepare 2 coffins for Xia 11 and me. There is another one prepared for the ghost in the sky coffin. As long as the 3 of us are buried in a century-old tomb, Qin Jiangxing can return to the palace. But it is difficult to accomplish this. Where can I find a century-old tomb?" The second uncle seemed to have read through my thoughts and said, "Don't worry about the century-old tomb. I have found it. What is needed now is a coffin bearer." "Has the second uncle of the century-old tomb been found?" "So quickly?" The second uncle took out a note from his pocket and handed it into my hand. "This is the address of the coffin bearers. When you visit in person tomorrow, you must persuade them to carry your coffin. If they refuse, tell me the old man's name and they will definitely agree." I opened the note and glanced at the address on it. The Wu family, the coffin bearer, is the penultimate house on the Funeral Street. Funeral Street, isn't this the block where Ji Yuntang is located? Second uncle, what about you? Aren't you going with me? The second uncle shook his head and said, "I can't go with you, I have to monitor Su Tianxian secretly." I nodded, and my second uncle repeatedly told me to find help from the Wu family, the coffin bearers. "If you can't get it, things will be in trouble." I agreed wholeheartedly, and Xia 11 and I walked out of the lightless alley and came to a convenient place to wait for a taxi. A taxi came slowly, and I got into the taxi numbly like a walking zombie. As the car drove and I looked at the ever-changing street scene on the roadside, I couldn't suppress the sadness in my heart. I took out my phone and looked at the text message my third uncle sent me. Tears flowed down uncontrollably. "Xiao Su, I originally planned to tell you this matter later, but you have noticed it, so I have to tell you. Yes, your second uncle is not missing, but has passed away. He died while he was in the village. The person who killed him was Mr. Pen. I won't tell you first because I'm afraid you'll be sad, and secondly because I don't want you to take revenge. Your second uncle's revenge will be avenged by me, my younger brother. Just stay with Su Tianqian and learn your skills. There are not many people in our Lu family, and you can't let anything happen again. Xiao Su, remember not to seek revenge from Mr. Pen. You can't defeat him. Behind him is the entire paper maker. The text messages are gone here. My second uncle is really dead. I no longer suppress the emotions in my heart and cry in my arms. Xia 11 on the side saw me like this and hurriedly hugged me in her arms. I hugged Xia 11 tightly and vented my grief freely. The second uncle who loved me has really left. I have imagined countless times what it will be like when I meet him again. I thought he would silence my head as usual, but now. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 116. These days, I have never given up looking for my second uncle. But in the end, I got the bad news that my second uncle had passed away. I originally had a happy family. But in less than a month, the family has been torn apart, with no possibility of reunion. Because of the pain in my heart, I felt it was difficult to breathe. Xia 11 hugged me tightly, stretched out her hand, and gently stroked my head. This gesture gave me some comfort. When my second uncle went to Jiyuntang to find me for the first time, I was very happy. Because the second uncle is fine and he is still alive in this world. But what happened tonight is hard for me to accept. When I met my second uncle, I already noticed that something was wrong with him. It's just that I don't want to believe that the person standing in front of me just now is the fake second uncle. Whether it was the ink stains on his hands or my second uncle's various weird behaviors, they all made me suspicious of him. In order to confirm my suspicion, I sent a text message to my third uncle. The text message I sent to my third uncle was very simple. Third uncle, is my second uncle gone? When I sent this text message to my third uncle, I felt very uneasy because I was afraid of knowing the outcome that I least wanted to know. The less I want to know, the crueler the ending will be. The text message my third uncle sent me made me sure that the second uncle just now was fake. It was forged by Painted Skin Ghost. I think the second uncle I met for the first time at the entrance of Jiyuntang was also a painted ghost. But why the Painted Skin Ghost can walk in the sun makes me puzzled. Why should I break up with Su Tianqian? In fact, the reason is also very simple. That is, the Painted Skin Ghost and Mr. Pan have the same purpose, both for the evil star Qing Yang. The most important thing is that I am in the light, and Painted Skin Ghost and Mr. Pan are in the dark. If we take action in the future, we will definitely be plotted by them. Moreover, Su Tianqian was seriously injured, and her current physical condition is far from as strong as it was in her heyday. If there is a conflict with Mr. Pan's Painted Skin Ghost at this time, it will definitely bring about unimaginable results. I don't want to see Su Tianqian get hurt by me again. Then, everything that happened tonight was of course done intentionally by Painted Skin Ghost and Mr. Pan. They wanted to sow discord between me and Su Tianqian and make me completely leave the protective umbrella of Su Tianqian. Since they want to sow discord between me and Su Tianqian, I will use their trick to break up with Su Tianqian, making Painted Skin Ghost and Mr. Pan mistakenly think that I have separated from Su Tianqian. Fortunately, Su Tianqian just understood my eyes. And has agreed to this plan. Now I just hope that Su Tianqian will not blame me for making my own decision without consulting her in advance. But how can we negotiate in that case? The car drove slowly on the road, and my mood gradually stabilized. Xia 11 stretched out her hand and gently wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes. She said apologetically, "I'm sorry, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't be able to break up with your master." If you didn't break up with your master, you wouldn't cry so sadly. Looking at Xia 11's delicate face, I sighed secretly, this kind little girl. Until now she thought it was all her fault. It's not your fault. Things are far from as simple as you think. I will explain it to you when the time comes. Xia 11 nodded. The two of us did not return to Jiyuntang, but instead came to Xia 11's home. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 117. I can't go to Jiyuntang. No one knows if the painted skin ghost is following me secretly. When I arrived at Xia 11's home, I found that the living room had been cleaned and replaced with new furniture. Xia's mother was not at home. She probably went to the hospital to take care of Lin's father. Xia 11 looked very haggard. It was really hard for her these days. It suddenly occurred to me that Xia 11 had not eaten for a whole day and night, so I said to her, "Let me cook you some food." Xia 11 was stunned, looked at me in disbelief, and asked, "Can you cook?" I nodded and said, "I know a little bit." I didn't know how to do it before, but during the time I spent with Su Tianxian, I would think of ways to cook all kinds of delicious food for Su Tianxian. Over time, you will get it? Xia 11 nodded. She was indeed a little hungry, and her eyes were so hungry that it was difficult to walk. I came to the kitchen and made Xia 11 a bowl of tomato and egg noodles using simple ingredients. I brought the noodles in front of Xia 11 and said, "Eat it." Xia Ziqiang's nose was slightly raised, and she sniffed the fragrance of tomatoes and egg noodles in the air. Her eyes lit up and she said, "It smells so good." She picked up the chopsticks in her right hand and the bowl in her left hand, and then started to devour it. Seeing this, I smiled and said, "Eat slowly, no one will compete with you. She has been really hungry these days. If I don't rescue her, I'm afraid she will starve to death." Thinking of this, my hatred for Painted Skin Ghost became even stronger. Painted Skin Ghost, relying on his special abilities, kept playing with me. What I cannot accept the most is that he actually teamed up with Mr. Pan to use my second uncle's identity to deceive me. I must make this person and one ghost pay the price. Soon Xia 11 finished the whole night of noodles. She burped and placed the bowl on the table. "Thank you, Lu Su." I waved my hand and said, "What's the point of thanking you and me? If you're not full, I'll make you another bowl." Xia 11's eyes lit up, her face turned slightly red, and she nodded gently. I couldn't help but smile and shake my head. This little girl is quite deep. I came to the kitchen and planned to make another bowl of tomato and egg noodles for Xia 11. I opened the gas valve, and the blue gas flame kept beating. At this moment, I felt the surrounding temperature drop sharply by several degrees. The blue flame was extinguished instantly, and I felt a chill in my heart. Could it be that there were other ghosts in this villa? Just when I was looking around cautiously, a cold voice sounded from behind me. "Lu Su." I turned around and saw that it was Xiang Yi. I was slightly taken aback and asked, "Master Xiang, why are you here? Could it be that you know that I'm here to thank you for your performance?" I originally thought Xiang Yi would praise me, but what I never expected was that Xiang Yi slapped me on the head. This slap made me a little confused, and I asked with some confusion, "Master Xiang, did I do something wrong?" Xiang Yi glared at me, pointed at my nose with his index finger and cursed, "Lu Su. Lu Su. You are really a troublemaker. Do you know how much trouble you have caused me tonight?" The doubts in my heart became more intense. "Master Xiang, what are you talking about? I helped you send away those lonely ghosts in Wudeng Alley, you should be happy." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 118. Xiang Yi was already angry, but she became even more angry when she heard what I said. "Lu Su. Did you get kicked in the head by a donkey? How dare you send away the lonely ghosts in Lightless Alley? Do you think your life is too long? Xiang Yi pointed at me and yelled. This reaction was exactly the same as that of Su Tianqian when he saw me in Lightless Alley. My brows instantly furrowed. Is it possible that the lonely ghosts in the Lightless Alley cannot be saved? Master Xiang, what on earth is going on? Xiang Yi looked at me with an innocent face, let out a long sigh, and said, you can't send away the ghosts in Wudeng Alley. This is strictly forbidden by the superiors. Otherwise, how could there be no ghosts in Wudeng Alley? Go. The lonely ghost in Lightless Alley also said something similar before. They were imprisoned in the Lightless Alley and could not leave. And ghosts can't come to Lightless Alley. Although I had some doubts at the time, I didn't take it to heart. But looking at Xiang Yi's reaction now, I know I'm in big trouble. I asked weakly, are the consequences serious? When Xiang Yi heard this, the suppressed anger came from the bottom of his heart again, and he slapped me on the head again. You still dare to ask about the consequences? I can tell you clearly. The consequences are very serious. I don't think Xiang Yi is joking. But I don't dare to ask any more. If I continue to ask questions, won't I get beaten again? Do you know how much effort I put into concealing this matter? I have used all my little treasury to maintain relations. Seeing Xiang Yi's face full of pain, the corner of my mouth twitched slightly. After working on it for a long time, I still feel sorry for my money. Xiang Yi sighed, then looked at me fiercely and said, the little treasury is gone. All my little female ghosts have abandoned me. You have to take responsibility for this. I shook my head and said, I don't know, but I know those female ghosts who leave you because of money must not be sincere. After hearing this, Xiang Yi was so angry that I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiang Yi took a deep breath, and his angry expression slowly disappeared, replaced by an extremely serious look. Lu Su, this matter is really serious, so serious that even I might be driven to pieces because of this matter. I frowned and asked, what kind of existence is the Lightless Alley? Xiang Yi took a deep look at me and said, you can't know about the things in Wudeng Lane yet. It's not good for you if you know too much. Anyway, you just need to know that you will get into big trouble. I asked again, is there any remedial measure? Xiang Yi pondered for a moment and said, there are ways, but I haven't figured it out yet. The water in Wudeng Alley is very deep, and I don't dare to step into it. But because of you, I have already fallen into it. The superiors don't know about this yet, so I can only find a way to make up for it as soon as possible. I looked at Xiang Yi apologetically and said, I'm sorry. Xiang Yi waved his hand and said, the Lightless Alley involves too much, and may even affect the order of the underworld and the human world, but there are also remedial measures. If I can solve it, I will solve it myself. If I can't solve it, then I need your help. I quickly said, Master Xiang, if you need my help, just ask. Xiang Yi glared at me fiercely, then stretched out his hand. I looked at Xiang Yi with some confusion. What does this action mean? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 119. Seeing me frozen in place, Xiang Yi said angrily, ghost money. Give me some money quickly. I have to chase Xiao Hong back. The corner of my mouth twitched slightly. My dear, trouble has already come to my door, and I still want to pick up a female ghost. I don't have one now. No. Xiang Yi broke through his defense instantly, pointed at me and said, get it for me right now. I don't have it in my pocket now, but Ji Yuntang does. All the ghost banknotes drawn before are in Ji Yuntang. I can't take it out now. Xiang Yi said, then take it for me now. I sighed and looked a little lonely. Seeing me like this, Xiang Yi asked with some confusion, What happened? I hesitated and told Xiangyi what happened tonight. Xiangyi was slightly stunned after hearing this, and his brows instantly wrinkled. The identity of the painted skin ghost is not simple. Anyway, you have to be careful. I can't interfere too much in Qin Jiangxing's affairs. You can only rely on yourself. After hearing this, I nodded, looked at Xiangyi, and asked, Master Xiang, is my second uncle still in the underworld? If so, can you let me see him now? My second uncle has passed away, and his soul will definitely go to the underworld. If my second uncle has not been reincarnated yet, given the relationship between Xiangyi and me, I will definitely be able to meet him. I originally thought that Xiangyi would take this matter to heart, but I never thought that what Xiangyi said next made me give up my desire to see my second uncle again. Death is like a lamp going out, and all thoughts turn to ashes. Your second uncle has already been reincarnated, so you might as well live a good life. I nodded, not knowing what it felt like. Xiangyi took a deep look at me and then disappeared. I sighed and continued making tomato and egg noodles for Xia 11. After Xia 11 finished eating the noodles, she returned to her room and fell asleep deeply. And I lay in the villa guest room and couldn't sleep. The matter of his handsomeness has not been resolved yet, and he has got into big trouble in the lightless alley. Although Xiangyi is very unruly at times, his anger at the beginning is real. It seems that this matter is far from as simple as I imagined. After thinking about it, I felt sleepy and fell asleep. The next day, Xia 11 and I came to the funeral street and planned to visit the Wu family, the coffin bearer. This morning, I explained to Xia 11 why she was kidnapped and who was the person who kidnapped him. Of course there is also the matter about Qin Jiangxing. If Qin Jiangxing does not return to the palace, Xia 11 will also face danger. So for my life and Xia 11's life, the two of us must act together. After hearing my explanation, Xia 11 agreed. When I passed Ji Yuntang, my steps stopped, and I let out a long sigh as I looked at the closed door. I don't know what happened to Su Tianxian. I followed the address painted skin ghost gave me and came to a coffin shop. The door to the coffin shop was closed. I stepped forward and knocked on the wooden door. After a while, the door to the coffin shop opened. A woman caught my eye. When I saw the woman's appearance, I was slightly stunned. What makes me stunned is the woman's dress and figure. The person in front of me was very delicate, but he was wearing men's clothes, which gave people a very strange feeling. Who are you looking for? I froze in place again. Because the woman's speaking voice was very rough, just like a broken gong's voice. Holy shit. This is a man. Not a woman. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 120. I stared blankly at the man in front of me. The man has a pair of beautiful eyes that are as beautiful as heaven and earth, without any impurities, clear but bottomless, with dark eyebrows and a complexion as clear as jade. She looked like a woman no matter how she looked, but his broken voice and Adam's apple gave him away. Xia 11 also looked at the man with dull eyes. Seeing me staring at him, the man said angrily, "What are you looking at? What's so interesting? This man seems to have a hot temper." I said with a smile on my face, "I'm here to discuss business." The man looked at me displeased and said, "Come in." I followed the man, and the man said as he walked, "The coffin is here. You can choose it yourself. Just pay for the one you like and take it away." The coffin shop is not big, only 3 coffins are neatly placed in the house. I didn't take the man's words to heart, because I didn't come here to buy a coffin, I came here to carry the coffin. I suddenly felt like I was being watched. This feeling makes me very uncomfortable. Like a on my back, I can't sit still. I frowned, my eyes constantly scanning the coffin shop, and finally my eyes rested on the wall directly in front of me. There are 3 black and white photos of the deceased hanging on the wall. The people in them are all elderly men. When my eyes came into contact with the old man in the middle, a chill spread from the bottom of my heart. Because, he is staring directly at me. Not only the middle one, but also the old men in the photos on both sides were staring straight at me. No matter how I move, the feeling of being watched is like a dogskin plaster that I can't shake off. Seeing me in a daze, the man said even more displeased, "Are you listening to me?" I suddenly woke up and quickly said to the man, "I am listening, I am listening." The man glanced at me and said, "Which coffin do you like?" I hesitated for a moment and stated the purpose of my coming here. "Carrying the coffin? I can't say that. I have to ask my grandfather." After saying that, the man shouted into the back room, "Master! Someone wants us to carry the coffin." The man's sudden shout almost penetrated my eardrums. This decibel is too high. The combination of a woman's appearance and a man's voice is simply too inconsistent. Just when I was thinking about this, an old voice came from the back room. "Shout, what are you shouting for? Do you want to scare your grandpa and me to death?" The door curtain of the back room was opened, and an old man with white hair and wrinkles walked out. The old man hunched over and walked slowly, holding an old pipe in his hand. The man came to the old man, pointed at me and said, "Grandpa, he wants us to carry the coffin." After hearing this, the old man looked at me from head to toe. "Oh, sit down and let's talk slowly." I nodded and followed the old man to the table under the portrait and sat down. The old man motioned to his grandson to make me a pot of tea. The man picked up the teapot and walked into the back room. The old man didn't speak in a hurry. Instead, he lit his pipe and started smoking. The other party didn't speak, and I was too embarrassed to speak. It seemed a bit rude. After taking a few puffs, the old man asked, "Little boy, what is your name?" I replied respectfully, "Old sir, my name is Luciu." When the old man heard the name, he was slightly startled, and a ray of light burst out from his cloudy eyes.